Temper the tones, rattle the neck, shaking the trees so bad it's singing grace. The fire from laying my bones. I
Right, let's
shuffle
start in 1 minute.
the pack, wake up the dead, prepare for the freeze. When I'm like this, I shall release. It starts.
Well. It's 1 o'clock. It's Friday. It's welcome to the Sustac Plans Chat Club, where we discuss AI innovations and ethics in marketing and business for 30 minutes every Friday. And I have here the great Reggie Johnson, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, Director of
Hello.
Communications. Reggie, how are you?
Doing well. It's early here. You guys are midday, so
That's right. That's right. Thank you for getting up at this obscene hour. It's 7 o'clock in Texas time. Fort Worth, Texas time. It's 8 o'clock New York time. 3 p.m. Cairo. 4 p.m. Kampala. 5 p.m. Dubai, New Delhi. 6:30 Singapore. 8 p.m. and so on. So wherever you are, you're very, very welcome. Big tech's tobacco moment, the LA lawsuit. We're going to talk about that today. We've been following it for weeks. It's on as we speak. It's incredibly important. So we'll update you with that. Then we're going to ask you about over aggressive AI adoption. Is that possible? And then some really practical stuff about how do you manage AI agents, before your tech stack spins out of control, sort of thing. And then we're going to turn gaudy with some AI news about Meta's ghost bots and their grief tech business, no less. And after that, we'll explore something quite radical. Unilever CEO's big strategic mistake, or at least Mark Ritson claims it's a big strategic mistake. We'll put it to you and see what you guys think. And I'm not sure I agree with Mark 100%, but we'll open that one up. And then we finish with a very innovative ad, which is about the Compliments Cafe. And I was saying to Reggie earlier before we came on air that I'm very interested in Reggie's opinion, because British advertising and American advertising is quite different actually in the execution. So we'll just see if you can understand what's going on with this ad. I will post it on the link, as we do with everything, to prsmith.org/blog, and watch this ad. For me, it's a classic. It's a great piece of advertising. I only just saw it this week, and it's, for me, a very refreshing piece of work. But we'll talk about that. We'll play you a little bit from it as well. And then we'll finish on one more positive note about the Winter Olympics. A beautiful message of hope. And that's that. Now, we just had that piece of music from Rich Evero Reed, and it's a lovely piece called Tamper the Tones, and we'll play more of it at the end and put a link to that as well on prsmith.org/blog.
good tune. It was good tune.
Good stuff. Glad you like it, Reggie. And all these are local guys, that you bump into. I play football with them. Another footballer I play with, and he's got loads of albums out. And
You know a lot of musicians. I got to say that you know a lot of musicians.
Yeah, well, you cross paths with them, and it's nice to be able to kind of spread their message a little bit if it helps them on the way. Actually, last week, did you notice? I think we had a bit of a hit last week when we introduced. It was Tim Haynes' piece of music.
Yes,
I think
definitely.
Yeah.
And Sorabel, our guest, helped promote the Blege. We got some interest
in that. Yeah, on our blog. That was really nice. Yeah. So hopefully that helps him at his case. Right. We're going to kick off with the big tech's tobacco moment, as they say. And this is all about, the big tech suit that's going on in Los Angeles. Now, we've been following Nikki Petrozzi for many years. And guess what, Reggie? Nikki Petrozzi, whose video clips we put up, I repost them on my site and so on and so forth. She's a tremendous lady and is kind of campaigning all the time for protecting children online. Guess what? She has been subpoenaed. Isn't that unreal? So, she received a subpoena from Snapchat, and she said, Snapchat wants all of my communications with victims, mothers, victims' families, victims of their platform, who are now suing them for providing a defective platform that connected their children with drug dealers and fentanyl. And Nikki says, how low will these companies go? How far will they go to attack families that have not only lost children, but families who are trying to tell their stories? This whole thing feels like an attack on families like ours. But she says it's a fight that we're going to win. We're already winning. We're in the courtroom fighting these companies, revealing all the things they knew about, that their platform was being harmful, and not telling anyone about this. And they're continuing to target children, says Nikki. And she says, thank you for following me. And if you don't want to follow me on Instagram, please sign up to her email list, which is called scrollingtodeath.com/heat. Now, I was reading the comments when she posted this video. And, subpoena basically is a court order that you have to either attend or present documents or information. So they're demanding this information from her. Now, a lady called Lauren Pear, her comment was very interesting. She said, keep up the great work and all that. But she suggested, I would think you have the legal right to keep these communications out of the court via reporter's privilege. I don't know if that's true or not. And she said also, I wonder if any mainstream media outlet journalists would be interested in covering this story now the fact is that Snapchat is trying to get you, one of the people providing coverage on it. It would be an absolute PR disaster for Snap, Lauren Pear suggests. So I sent a message to Nikki, I haven't had a chance to check, to say, have you considered that? And another comment from somebody called Vincent Suzara, who made an intriguing suggestion to her saying, why don't you post the entire subpoena and their attorneys for public review? Now, I'm not sure again that's legal, but that was a suggestion from Vincent. And he said, and also demand Evan Spiegel, is the CEO of Snap, entire holdings, both domestic and overseas, including all overseas bank and property accounts, his yachts, and the entire investor list of Snap.
Fair's fair, right? I mean, it's relevant. Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is something we've seen a pattern on, is if you've got billions, you can harass and attack the people that speak out against you. And we've seen all these big tech companies do just that.
Yes. It's the bully boys, isn't it? The oligarch sort of thing kicking in again, the big brother oligarchs coming at you. So Nikki posted something today just after that last video. She says, Meta seems like it's in damage control mode. They've just announced new alerts to let parents know if their teens may need support. This is what Instagram say. Instagram will start notifying parents if their teens repeatedly tries to search for terms related to suicide or self-harm within a short period of time. What the heck does that mean? How many times does my child have to search for suicide before you let me know? Why not just once? If anybody does it once, that you'd alert the parents. Surely, we're parents, Reggie. Wouldn't you want to know immediately? And what's a short period of time? Is that a day, a week, an hour? It seems to me that Meta is just scrambling to get something out there to try to, batten down the hatches. That's what it seems like to me. That's my opinion.
And remember, they've shown us who they are. And this is not just opinion. They've got a long record. I mean, okay, it's my evaluation, but they've got a long record of unethical behavior where they've hidden evidence of harms. They've specifically gone after people that have spoken out against them. They've made decisions to prioritize profits again and again and again over potential harms. How can you trust them when they say something that vague? And honestly, even if they say we're going to do this to protect kids, they've shown that they don't do that. They don't prioritize that. It's hard to trust them. And
I can't trust them. I mean, why haven't they done this 5-10 years ago, when they're being asked to do it? Why suddenly, because they're in court, they're now making an announcement like this? So, we've always said, I don't believe they can't detect conversations that are going on about terrorism, about sexual abuse, whatever it is, or drug dealers. Of course they can detect this. And now they're saying, oh, yes, we can. And we might let you know within a period of time if it happens repeatedly. It's a disgrace. And, why are they making these suggestions now? So why did they do this a long time ago? And by the way, this is only available to kids who are enrolled in teen accounts and connected with their parents' account, which is a minimal amount of teenagers that use Instagram, says Nikki. So, farcical stuff. We'll keep you posted each week as to what's happening, and keep posting the blogs. And well done to Nikki Petrozzi for pursuing this. She's now she feels like a rough time, I believe. Anyways, that's bad enough. But let's move back and park that for a second and move back into AI adoption in particular. And something came up during the week about aggressive AI adoption. Is this possible to be over aggressive in AI adoption, Reggie?
I think it is. I think that we've talked about how kind of the CEOs of a lot of companies are in a position where the tech bros are coming and winning them over, not so much their people or their tech people, but they're winning over the CEOs. So we have CEOs coming out and putting out a mandate. We're going to default to AI. We've talked about that one. We're going to default to AI, and any problem you have, you should default to AI. And if you don't default to AI, then you're not going to work here anymore. And instead of defaulting to using your brain and deciding which tool suits the situation best, it's default to AI, because there's this magical assumption that AI is this thinking, brilliant entity that's supernatural and can tell you the answers, and that's just not true. It's a word pattern matcher, probability predictor, and the people that are most in power seem to be the ones that are most swooning over this romanticized notion that AI is magical. So here's the thing. There was a study that put out, and Louisa Jarofsky, who we also follow and who's a big advocate for AI safety, pointed out this study that came out that came to some interesting conclusions about AI first companies as they're being known. And this is important to know. I was at a panel the other night, and they were talking about career skills for communicators, and they said all businesses now want to make sure you have AI skills, and it can be tied to your bonuses and promotions. And it's not just some of these big companies that we've seen. We've seen some of the releases from the CEOs that have been spread and gone viral on social media. But here's the thing. The study shows that AI deployment might negatively impact professional development. That's one. Junior employees might never have the chance to build skills. And three, humans might not be able to manage AI-generated work. So these are some serious concerns. Humans might not really possess the necessary skills to validate and debug, like, say, AI code, if their skill formation was inhibited by using AI in the first place. These are serious problems. And the AI first mentality leads to treating AI as a goal, as an end in itself, like the default to AI. That's really saying AI is an end in itself. Are you using AI? That your bonus depends on it. How about how many problems you solved, how much impact you made? No, it's, are you using AI? It's really, I would say laughable, but it's more cryable that businesses are doing this and saying your bonus is tied to whether or not you're using AI rather than the impact. Also, humans can feel worthless and disconnected from the product of their work. And there's what it says is that work-related mental health issues are about to explode, is the prediction. So
because of the use of AI.
Yeah, because of the pressure to use AI at work, and the deprioritization of human skills, the devaluation of human skills, and especially for new and young employees. And I think that it's important to learn new tools, but to make it an end in itself in this way, and the get all be all for a business success, is really misguided. It's damaging to your employees, and I think it's damaging to your business in the short and long term, as we've seen so many times with reports that come out and said the productivity is lacking.
Yeah, the productivity is lacking for all sorts of reasons. But there are companies that are enjoying success with AI if it's properly used. And I guess for the advanced level would be agentic AI, where you're using AI agents. And the question that has arisen now is, well, how do you manage AI agents before your tech stack spins out of control? And I think this is a really interesting question, because we will be using more and more agents, I suspect, over time when we get to know them a bit better. Do you remember, Reggie, we had a great chat a few weeks back, and it was suggested that, like, if you're bringing agentic AI into your business, treat it like a person. Like you'd have to train that person, and you have to watch them and control them and monitor them, and maybe not motivate them, but certainly monitor them and feedback and improve them, etc. So this is a piece by Bernard Marr. Now, we're big fans of Bernard Marr, and we posted a link to this about, how do you manage AI agents? So we know that AI agents are really taking some companies by storm, but there are problems with it if it isn't done correctly. So the problem may well be that, you may end up with a stack of tools and applications from different vendors, all competing to sell their tools, that provide different methods of achieving the same goals. So we need some practical steps to ensure that your own agentic AI ecosystem, it sounds very cool, but having some agents working in your business, that would be your agentic ecosystems. Does it fit into the rest of your ecosystems so that you remain cohesive, secure, and stable, really, I guess. Yeah. So we're talking really about automating routine and repetitive work through an agentic AI or an AI agent. And this applies, I guess, to just about every function, from marketing to finance to HR, logistics and operations. So what happens if each of these departments is building their own team of its own agents? The agentic AI ecosystem can become a mess, a complete mess of duplicated work, incompatible standards, inconsistent workflows. Because the reality is that the platform vendors like Google, OpenAI, Salesforce, Microsoft, HubSpot, all of these, they've got their own conventions and standards. So if different departments are using different platforms, you're going to have some challenging issues further down the road. There's a number of dangers, not just from a lack of centralization of permissioning, but authentication and security. We need, we can't have a lack of traceability and ownership of information or demand of content that's coming out, or answers or solutions that are coming out of the AI. So we need ownership of everything that the AI agent's doing. We need clear audit trails. About the moment they're unclear. We need a single source of truth for policy and governance. And without all this, you're going to have a large amount of time and effort wasted on duplicated workflows. So what's the answer? Reggie, I'm just going to test you here and ask you, what might be the answer? Where there's a large numbers of dangers are lurking here. And we had a great chat recently that really took us inside some of these dangers and gave us solutions. Can you recall?
Yeah, was that the guest we had before Soribel, the previous guest we had
Well,
had?
we had two. Yeah, we had two. But I'm just referring particularly to Soribel last week, and her course on LinkedIn. We'll put a link to it again. But I mean, she gives very simple systems how to set up governance, and it's very doable, very easy to do. Like any graduate could do it, with a bit of nous. So I think this overlaps with what Soribel said last week. So we put a link to our 30-minute chat last week with Soribel. We put it in the show notes, prsmith.org/blog, and you'll see there's a nice overlap here. But go back to Bernard Marr. He continues by talking about open standards. And, one solution to all this is to adopt open standards. Now, AAIF, the Agentic AI Foundation, which are part of the Linux Foundation, and they're the people that kind of got open source operating systems, universal standards. They kind of were behind the development of that. Linux Foundation did that for open source operating systems. So now they're involved in trying to get standardization for AI and to develop universal shared standards. So agents will have standardized ways to connect and communicate with tools and services if we can draw from a central, consistent source. Now, I'm not sure if this is the 100% source, and we'll just keep an eye on it. But we do need to help organizations to administer complex and growing ecosystem of agents. So to manage your agentic AI ecosystem, we've got to establish a multi-department group approving and overseeing and reviewing use cases. Secondly, we've got to create and adopt an acceptable agentic AI use policy. So that's about building and deploying and maintaining agents. That's a good one. And 3, maintaining a centralized record of how and where agents are deployed, and have them clearly labeled. What's the purpose of this one? What permissions does it have to have? And ownership. Who is responsible for this agent in particular? And this serves as a strategic purpose of ensuring agents are always aligned with business goals and priorities. And 4thly, develop and adopt document SOPs, that's this SOPs, standard operating procedures and best practices and agent design and workflow. And learn, have a kind of process that you learn from each, learn in a structured way from each AI agentic initiative. And 5thly, implement auditable transparency and traceability into your agentic ecosystem.
I see overlap there in the area of intentionality. I think about Soribel's 8 recommendations, and there's a lot in the area of being transparent and open with your workforce and intentional about what kind of AI usage you want. Otherwise, you end up with what do they call it? They call it dark AI usage, or where your shadow AI, where your employees are using it. And agents could be even more damaging if you don't have the full integration in terms of an intentionality behind how you're using it and how you're following governance, right? I mean, that's kind of the overlap.
Having that joined up thing across the organization. Performance, indeed.
multi-departmental. Yeah.
Multi-departmental, yeah. So implement auditability, transparency, and traceability into your agentic ecosystem. And finally, review the performance, safety, and relevance of every agent regularly. So it's not, oh, I've got my agent up. No, you've got to, like a new member of staff, you've got to manage them. Okay, so it can go horribly wrong. And speaking of nightmares, Reggie, speaking of nightmares, can we turn our attention to something rather gaudy? And that's Meta's ghost bots and grief tech business.
Yeah, let me ask you, Paul. When you think about your legacy, how does it make you feel to think about, one day, God forbid, you will die, and your social media accounts, which is, I'm sure, the first thing you think about when you think about dying, is what's going to happen to my social media accounts, right? Isn't that what we all think about when we're going to die?
Yeah.
What do you think about the thought if your social media accounts could keep posting? If you could keep posting after you died, you wouldn't experience it, but it would keep being you. Would you do it?
I'd rather not, personally. No, but what's it about then?
Well, so here's the other thing: is what do you think about your friends, your family, your grandchildren? About them, how do you think they would feel if you kept posting after you died?
Don't know. I mean, they're probably broader minded, and probably they'd like it if it was useful advice or poems or stories or something.
It's an interesting question, and this is the kind of, you talked about how AI always goes back to philosophy. Well, Meta has put out a new patent to help keep people posting after they die. This was from Business Insider. Sydney Bradley wrote about this, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of interest in grief tech, as it's been called, or death bots, where ways to keep posting after you die. I remember seeing who's the Deepak Chopra with an AI avatar many years ago on an iPad, showing it on the Tonight Show, with how it could continue to imitate him even after he passed away. This was before it went mainstream, and so this question is, what if you could keep posting and simulate you? It would simulate you. Well, on the one hand, Meta says that it's very hard on your followers when you die because there's this loss. So this solves that problem, because you could keep posting and they could keep having the engagement. So to fill that void, they can essentially clone you and keep it going. It's a very interesting thing. I think that some other people have pointed out, that when it comes to that, grief serves a purpose. Grief allows us to face the reality of the loss. And ultimately, was this, let me find the gentleman's name. I think David Harrison said that, a sociologist had said that, Joseph Davis, sorry, had said that let the dead be dead, because this is ultimately not helping when it comes to grief. Let the dead be dead, and that perhaps Meta's motivations are off from what's best for humans. That's my comment. But the fact that one of the tasks of grief is to face the actual loss, are we going to blur the line between alive and dead for people with influential accounts, just like we've blurred the line between the fake and the real, and when it comes to deep fakes and in media? So it's an interesting question. Would your family and friends actually be disturbed by you continuing to post and have a harder time dealing with grief? And really, what purpose does this serve? Now, to be fair, Meta has said they have no current intention of implementing this. They're just patenting it. But this is how these things start, and they put it out there and see how it's received. So I'm interested in our listeners' thoughts.
Yes.
As to, would you want to do that? Number one, would you want a loved one to do that? And would you want to do that?
Well, it's already happened. And I've talked about Michael Parkinson, the famous BBC chat show host, and by far the best ever of all BBC's greats. He is the greatest. He interviewed Muhammad Ali, Nixon, you name it. He's done them all. He's passed away, and his son has all the recordings, and they've trained an AI to be able to regenerate his voice and his discussion style, which is very Yorkshire, north of England, very witty, very fast flowing. It looked like he'd no notes. He just flowed with the conversation. He was absolutely brilliant. And the idea was to recreate an AI that could interview contemporary new people, whether it's Snoop Dogg or Donald Trump or whoever it is. They would interview, and you'd get the Parkinson thing. So that's kind of an extension of that.
Yeah,
I wrote about this in November 2023, and I'll put the post link in there called "Will ChatGPT plus chatbots plus avatars make us immortal?" And a bit of a long-winded title, but in there we talked about a grieving mother who meets her daughter who's dead, and it's really, really sad. And she's an avatar, and it's only a limited amount of time, and then the thing shuts down. Another one was a grieving fiance who'd lost his fiance 8 years earlier to a terrible disease, and he hasn't really got over it. And so he gets this opportunity to talk to her by text. I think he gets 50 units credit for $10 or whatever it is. And he says, "I know you're dead." And she says, "Yes, yeah, I am, but I still love you." And the conversation continues in there. It's one of the most romantic sci-fi things I've ever read. It's very beautiful. It's very sad. It's very beautiful. And I'm not sure if we need an expert to tell us about, a therapist that would know about grieving and so on, to say whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. But it's been around. I don't think it's going to go away. And if there's a possibility of making a few dollars out of it, man, it'll be in there like a shot, will they? So
what, Gary Ennis, one of our favorite people that follows the show, says they're sick of my posts while I'm alive. They'd be devastated at me still talking 6 feet under. I think, speaking of his family, how they'd feel about it. I love that take, Gary.
Good man, Gary Ennis. Fair play to you, Gary. And Gary did me a big favor during last week. It was actually where there was a course about Sustak. We had a few mistakes in it with the Scottish Institute, we'll say. And you fixed that for me, so I'm indebted to you, Gary. Thank you very much for that. But that's a good one. People have had enough of you and say, "Thank God he's gone. We can leave us in peace," sort of thing. It's not may he rest in peace. He's going to leave us in peace, as they say. Very good. Okay, look, we're not going to have time. I don't want to rush into Mark Ritson outrageous statement that the Unilever CEO has a new marketing doctrine, and it is completely wrong. By new marketing doctrine, it means a new marketing strategy. And he says it is completely wrong. We're going to save that for next week because it's a whopper, and I want to put it out there. And it's kind of an age-old postgraduate question, about allocating your marketing resources to what bits. And Unilever have made a radical change. Won't go into what just yet, but we'll pick up the pieces next week and run through that. So I'm going to skip through Unilever. I promise you we'll come back to that next week, and it will be a good one. It will make you think. I want to play for you an innovative advertisement, given that Mark Ritson's discussions is all about essentially advertising versus the rest, which is a very age-old debate. But here's an ad I saw online. I thought this is really quite intriguing piece of work. So I'm going to play it for you now. For today, right? Okay. So this is an ad. I'll just describe it for you. We'll start playing it now. And we put the full ad up online on pearsmith.org/blog. So I want you to try and tell me what the ad's about. Now, you're not seeing it. I'll describe bits of it, but here we go.
Compliments Cafe.
So a guy gets out of his car. It's an old model of a very stylish car, walks into a cafe. He's dressed quite coolly. He's got a nice hat and jacket on. And the guy behind the counter looks like...
What do you want?
Looks like 110-year-old Keith Richards. "What do you want?" he says. And the guy then starts looking at the menu.
Could be. It's not a novel, mate. It's a menu. All right, mate. I'll take a bacon bap. Bacon bap.
He shouts into the kitchen, "Bacon bap."
Do you want a compliment with that? One included with every purchase. Yeah. Yeah. All right. The moment you stepped into the room, the world reduced to a whisper, as if inspiring a space for me to admire you. I regularly see attire I admire, but you give character to the clothes you wear, and above all, your jacket, a perfect fit, as if sewn from the memories of someone that once adored you. Shakespeare himself couldn't write a piece of prose that did its beauty any kind of justice. It takes a moment for someone to change you, and sometimes a change is so profound. And let me tell you, I can only thank you for the change you inspired in me. Next!
That's quite the compliment.
It
Do
is
you have
quite-
a guess what it's for?
yeah. What do you think that ad is for, Reggie?
I would guess men's clothing.
Bang on. Well done. I had to watch it twice to figure out, is this for real? It is for men's clothing, for a fashion style of clothes in London called October Editions, no less. So I'll post that up there because it's one of those For me, it just, you see an ad like that every so often, and you just have to giggle. And sometimes UK advertising is different to our American counterparts. So we'll put that up. Have a look at it and do post some comments, because it's brilliant. I think it's one of the finest things I've seen. Okay, we're going to finish now with some cheerful stuff. So some beautiful thoughts from the Winter Olympics. Reggie.
Yes, so patriotism versus nationalism. There was this moment, what David Litt wrote in the New York Times about an incident that happened. Swiss skater Kimi Rapon finished second to last. She had fallen for the second time. Her chances to set her own personal best were down the drain. But yet the crowd of about 12 different nations at least cheered her on in a way that you would think that she was winning an Olympic record, an Olympic medal. And honestly, what he talks about is that something tied us together, other than the desire to see our own athletes win, was the shared belief that in difficult times, there is nothing more impressive, nothing more Olympian than figuring out a way to muddle through. And that's what he talks about, the world citizens sending a message that we proudly root for our countries, but we are more than just our countries. And in many cases, we are better, much better than the governments in charge of them. The difference between patriotism and nationalism: patriotism, I'd say, can open your heart. Nationalism closes it and blinds you in the process. Patriotism is the often affectionate devotion and pride in one's country, fostering unity and service, while nationalism is an often aggressive belief in superiority of one's nation. That difference is so important as we see patriotism at the Olympics, and hopefully an open heart towards that kind of sporting spirit.
Oh, wow. That's terrific. David Litt. Yeah, I think he was an Obama speechwriter, actually. And that was that the New York Times, was it? Or?
New York Times, and some of that was my own editorializing. I don't mean to put words in his mouth,
Yeah.
but that one quote from that segment was from him. Yes, excellent article about these sports moments that bring us together and transcend national barriers.
Transcend national barriers. We want more of that. Fantastic stuff, Reggie. Thank you very, very much for that, and thanks everybody for stopping in, having a little listen, and posting a comment. We really appreciate that. We're going to stop now. It's just gone past 1:30, so we're going to continue with Rich Evero Reed and his track called Tamper the Tongues. And we'll wish you a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. The Six Nations has been suspended for a week, a little break for the bodies, and we'll resume with that again next week. So anyways, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week, and we post the notes on prsmith.org/blog. Post the full track and a link to it in the show notes. See you next week. Everybody, see you guys.